So once we've got this thing up and running, we need a user model and user class to handle everything. So let's head back to the terminal, wherever that is. Here it is. So let's do Sails. We could do Sails generate API, but in this case we want to make a model called user, and then we want to make a controller called auth for authenticate. So let's just say, okay, so I just had a bit of a brain fart. I forgot to actually change directory into the passport example, and now we can actually do Sails generate the model user. So it's created a model, and then we want to create a controller called auth. Bam, that's all we need. So let's come back here. Okay, once we're in here, let's go to API. And then we'll go to controllers, open auth up, and the models. So in model, in user, so let's create the base layout that we need for our application. So let's go username. That's going to be a type of string, and we want a required true. That's just a safeguard. So let's just copy and paste this a couple times. So let's just say username. We want to let's just say username, email, password, and maybe a description. Username, email, password, and a description. Something like along those lines. And also, we want to make sure that when we call our function, we don't actually want to return the password. So we can actually add a different function. I'm not too sure what the latest function is, but I hope this works with the version that that you're using as well. So let's just say custom to JSON. So we want to say function return. So we use here, the keyword is the underscore sign, and then we want to say omit. So we want to remove, when we call this, we want to remove the password. So we don't want to show that to the world, basically. Once we've done that, and then we want to say before we create the user, we want to hash the password. So we only store user and a callback function. So in here we want to say be crypt, but to do that we need to include it at the top, something like that. And then down here we can say be crypt dot generate with a salt. Let's just say size 10, and the function, the callback, we want to say the user, and the salt, we want to say be crypt dot hash the user dot password with the salt null for the next one, and then a function callback error and the hashed password. And then we want to do basic error checking. If error, return with callback error, and if everything's okay, we want to just override the password with the hashed one. And then we just want to return the callback, something like that. There we go. Bam. user class all done. So to be able to authenticate the user, we want to create the three major ones: the login, register, and then the view controller. So let's just take a look. Oh, sorry. We want to create the three main ones. So that's login, register, and log out. So let's take a look at login first, I guess. So let's just say, but before we do that, we actually want to include the passport in there. So let's just do login function, logout function, and also the register function. There we go. So login. So with Sails, we call the function name that we want. We give it a name, and then we specify the function portion. We pass it in the request and the results, similar to how Express handles this. This is just a continuation of Express here. You'll be familiar. And once we've in there, we can now specify Passport.authenticate. We want to use, so the strategy we want to use is called local. And then we want to pass on the function callback. So check for error, the user, and any information. So that's the message. That's fine. So curly braces. And once we've done that, we want to check if there's any error, or if the user is not created. Error checking. So if there's an error or if there's no user, we want to do a callback, which is fine. And then we can do return dot, let's just say we want to send just a static JSON in this case. Sorry, just a static HTML page without any templating or any content like that. And we want to give it a message called info.message. So that's coming from the thing that we did just before previously. And then we want to give it the user, if there is one. And once we've done that, we want to close it off. Oop. Right here, we want to say bam, bam, bam. Oops, I made a bit of a mistake. This actually should be like that. There we go. So this is for checking for the errors, and then we want to process the actual login. So let's do request.login, and that's a function that Passport will pick up on. So we want to pass it in the user and then the callback function. Check for any errors. So we'll say if error, we want to return send with an error. Okay, and then here we want to maybe just do a helpful little log to the screens, to the console, so we can see what's going on. We can do console.log, or we can use Sails inbuilt function called Sails.log, and we can just say the user is plus the user.id plus continuing on has logged in, something simple like that, just so we know what's going on. And then we want to do, no, that's it, that's all we want to do. And then actually lastly as well, before I forget, we actually need to pass on the request and the result. There we go. It's like that. Make sure you've got that there. Okay. That's the login portion of it. Let's do the logout function. So let's do log out. Once again, function, the request, result. we just want to evoke, it's a passport function, so log out like so, and then we just want to do a redirect. Redirect to the main page. So just like that. There we go. That's the log out. Done. Alright, onto the register part. This one's a little bit longer because now we're checking for all the form validation and stuff like that. So it's going to be a simple one. So register function once again, and then the result. Once that's all up and done, so here we want to do some, we might want to do some if statements. So checking, so to do check, so form validation here. But for today, we're not going to bother. Let's just pretend that everything's okay. So let's just do data. So we'll just make it a little bit simpler for us. So we can say username rec.body .username. Because we're using post with our form validation, we want to use .body. If we were using get, we would use the parameters. There's a third one, but we don't have to bother with that one right now. So we'll do username, email, so same thing. So let's just copy and paste this actually. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So email, password, and then we want to do description. And the email, bam, that's done, that's the data. So we made sure, and then once again we use an inbuilt function with Sails to create a new user from the model that we created before. So we can use create, we pass in the data, and then once we created the user, we want to fetch the user, so we actually want to return it back to us. And we can use the exec as the final one in the string there to call once we've finished populating our command structure there. So we want to say function error to see if there's any errors, and then finally the user. Bam. So again, we want to say if error, if there's an error, return, let's just say res dot, let's negotiate. There we go. And then once we've created the user, we want to automatically log them in. Depends which way you want to go about. I'm just going to do it so it automatically logs in. Here you actually might want to do maybe send confirmation email to the user before the login. And here you might want to make another field that says like has it been, like confirmed, that's going to be like false or whatever. So that's one thing you can do, but in this case I'm just going to automatically log them in, log in the user. So let's do request or login. I think I did a capital up here. I don't believe we need that there. I believe it would work with the capital, but just in case, we'll see what happens. So we want to pass in the user. That comes back from the fetch command. And then we want to evoke the callback function, check for errors. And then again, we just want to say same thing we did as before, and then basically just a redirect to the main homepage. Bam, easy. So that's the authentication controller done. Alright, that was the second part. Thanks for watching, guys. Check out the next video for the third part. We're going to be checking out the policies and continuing our application with the forms and the routes and all the other things to get our app finished and working. Once again, I'm David Cedar. As always, guys, stay awesome.